Is it really that difficult to like clean up after ourselves? Even if the Antichrist is to come, right? Nigeria has to have light for the Antichrist to come. The badge of honor that PRP hasn't been winning elections because kind of elections we practice, if you're really going to be honorable, it will be difficult for you to win them. It doesn't matter who comes in or who goes out. If you do more than yourself, they will kill you. If Nigeria wants to do electricity rights, it will take us about 20 years. Thing I think I can control is like I can tell the truth.
It
Sorry.
seems NEPA has gone where you are.
How are we now going to record this? How are we going to record this?
Nigeria is not behind because of a lack of intelligence, not because of a lack of talent, not even because of a lack of resources. Nigeria is behind because of a collapse of trust. This is the argument my guest today has been building his entire career around. And it's a bold one because it means the solution is not just money or better politicians. It means rebuilding the invisible infrastructure that every functioning economy quietly runs on. Ifeoluwa Walle Osho is a physicist, an AI researcher, the founder of Ajay, a digital commerce platform. This is the 91 podcast. So welcome, Mr. Ifeoluwa Walle Osho. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Thank you. It's good to be on this program. My name is Ifeoluwa Walle Osho. The first of three kids of my mom. I had the privilege of studying physics for my undergraduate, and then I ended up doing a PhD in energy systems engineering. I founded a company that is a software company and provides escrow services for financial transactions. And I just recently became the candidate for the People's Redemption Party to be a House of Rep member representing Alimosho Federal Constituency in Lagos State. And that's just the. I'm sure we'll get more about what I do and how I do it. So I'll just let us go to do that.
Okay, so the can you Ashimolo local government, is that one of the biggest constituencies, I think, from what I've seen online?
Alimosho local government is the biggest local government in the entire country in terms of
Wow.
population. Um, so just in terms of scale, the next local government right beside me is Ojo local government. In terms of political scale, it contains 585 polling units, and Alimosho contains 1,545 polling units.
Wow.
The next the next local government after Alimosho only has about 800 plus polling units. And so it's in terms of voting, in terms of the number of people who live there, it's the biggest in the entire country.
So how did you get that kind of position then? You must know a lot about power and politics.
Not really. I think I'm not the elections is in 2027 and I
Okay.
am running in a relatively unknown party. It's not like I went through APC or NDC or PDP. Well, no one, I don't think anyone thinks PDP is still a big party, but they have some legacy. So yeah, PRP does have some legacy itself, so I shouldn't underestimate. They're the oldest political party in the entire country. However, they haven't had a lot of success in terms of national elections. They had a few successes in the late 70s. They do now have like two senators who decamped from APC to PRP. But prior, I think in the last election, they only won one assembly seat in one state. But they have a rich history, and one of the reasons why I chose PRP at the time was because it, it is, I understand how in the current political system, the best political parties don't win elections because we haven't really been doing elections in Nigeria in how many years. So it's a badge of honor if you don't perform well in Nigerian elections. It shows that you're doing something right.
And why do you want to get into, why do you want a position of power? What's your aim? What do you plan to do with it?
Hmm. First, we've I I have been fortunate in my life. I got to see all of my grandparents till the age of 20. I met both of my parents alive. And I I got a chance to school in Nigeria and school abroad. I've had a lot of good experiences. And I say this because even with that, there's been the complaint that we as a country haven't been getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And it is we're at a over the next decade, we're at a crossroad. The generation that has ruled us for almost since our beginning is going to be gone. It's not, it's just life.
Yeah.
We are going to end up moving up from that generation to a new generation of leaders. And that whoever takes over power now has the potential of ruling almost in the same length of time, 60 years for another generation. And it's so important now that we make the right decisions for the next generation. Because the thing about power is that once it gets into the hands of somebody, it's hard to pull out. It's impossible. It's nearly impossible to pull out because nobody just lets go of power, especially from a position of power. So your real question is, why do I want power?
Yes.
I don't. Right now, I'm just curious because I watched your interview with, I think it was Shola Kuti, and it was a few episodes ago. And not just him, even the one with David Rindeni, I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. And there's a consensus that's beginning to build that maybe we as Nigerians are not really like free people.
Hmm.
Maybe there's, and maybe there's a control mechanism and we're not really self-determinant. I don't know that to be true, but I want to find out. And I'm worried about that curiosity could kills. But I think it's the first step. Because some of the problems that we face. So if you leave my house in Idimo and you're heading maybe 10 kilometers inside Alimosho to maybe a place called Ayobo, it may not be familiar, but anybody who's watching the podcast and knows the area is going to be a bit familiar. The two main roads you need to pass. You need to pass the Egbeda Sherry Road and you need to pass the Ipaja Ayobo Road. Every 50 meters, at least for now, is a refuge dump right in the middle of the road. Like, I can send you pictures. And you have to ask yourself that, is it really that difficult to like clean up after ourselves? Is, is it really, is that something that we need like the best minds to achieve? Doesn't seem so. So it poses the question like, what exactly is the problem? If you ask me, my best theory is two things. First, I can be overly like optimistic and say over the last 200 years, we've probably been one of the fastest growing countries in terms of just share where we were is against like where we are now. There's no like um the the number of times women have to have children throughout a lifetime has like radically reduced in Nigeria. Normally, the idea is that you probably go and give birth, go to the labor room 10 times and probably maybe get out five children that grow to an age where they can be called adults because 50%, if not more, were dying in childbirth. And that isn't as much of the case now in Nigeria in 2026. And my father was one of the first teachers that ever taught in Alausa, the Lagos State, like where the head office of the civil service in Lagos State is. And at the point, he describes it as basically just bush, and all they had was like wood and like a shed where they were calling their names to come and resume at different schools. And if you go to that place now, there's not an inch of bush in 50-mile radius that of that place. And so one might say there has been a lot of growth. One might even say that what held us back, which is my first point, was our inability to put up a written language, and that science and technology is built on repeatability, and you can only achieve repeatability in experiments through writing, because you have to make sure that you're doing the same thing you did yesterday today. And if a civilization does not develop writing, then all the technologies that might emanate from it, from electricity to trains to cars to all the things we complain about not having, couldn't have been built without the ability to write. And since the Yoruba alphabet is the English alphabet, you can say that if we really were, I don't know, there's some people who put the argument that we were writing and we got lost, but I find that hard to believe. Well, I'm open to the argument, but like Indians alphabets didn't disappear, the Russian alphabets didn't disappear, the Chinese alphabets didn't disappear, Farsi, Arabic alphabets didn't disappear. So how is it that Yoruba alphabet suddenly disappear and it had to be replaced with English? If you were that sophisticated in writing, then you might have. Well, I guess. Oh, sorry, I think you want to say something.
Are you
I can get long-winded. Sorry.
so are you indirectly trying to say that we had no written language as Nigerians?
I don't see it. I don't see the evidence of it because the evidence of it is often in the alphabets. Is in what alphabet are you using to write your language now? And Yoruba is using English alphabets to write Yoruba. Igbo is using English alphabets to write Igbo. And a truly written language comes in the it starts first with the alphabet you use. So it's why we still have Roman numerals. It's why we still have Greek letters. It comes first with the alphabet. So it is possible that we had it and lost it, which is an argument that I'm open to hear, but I haven't seen it. There's the NBC, which is what Igbo say they had as written,
Yes.
but it's almost like the Ghanaian one too. It's not alphabetic as more as a symbolic kind of language. Now that might have been used to transfer information, but that's not very useful for science because of the exactness in which science needs to participate. But even that, it's not like we are seeing all those books, or it's not like we have like a library where NBC books exist and we can go and see where it is and prove that this was actually something that was used by sophisticated civilization before us. So, but
So are you trying to say that we were never a sophisticated civilization?
I don't, we don't, a sophisticated civilization leaves proof. Like, I lived in Turkey for a while. There's a building called Hagia Sophia. It's been there since 1553. If you were sophisticated, you would, it's like the Taj Mahal still exists. As in, these are buildings that are 500 years old. Where are these 700-year-old buildings in Lagos, in Nigeria, in any part? As in, it probably maybe exists, but it's not something that I can say, I can see. Where are the monuments? Where's the Big Ben? Sophisticated society isn't something we just like. The most sophisticated thing about it's not doesn't even really reside in sub-Saharan Africa. It resides in Middle East, which is the pyramids, and that's a world wonder. And nobody can understand how it is, how it was built, or who built it. But if we look down our side, Nigeria, sub-Saharan Africa, especially Nigeria, I shouldn't generalize. I'm just saying the places that I've been. I don't see the existence of a fully sophisticated civilization that exists. Because, see, the reason, so people say, why don't we have electricity? The reason we don't, in my mind, the reason we don't have electricity is because we don't have an Isaac Newton, we don't have a Maxwell, we don't have, where are the Maxwell's equations that give you electricity? Who developed the Maxwell equations? As they, you need those things to build out
Mr.
that kind of technology.
Sorry, Mr. Ifeoluwa.
And so,
I don't know. I feel like I'm being indirectly insulted. Are you saying that there are no smart Nigerians? You just said we have no Isaac
I'm not
Newton. You
saying
said,
that, no, no, no. That's the thing is that I'm not saying they're not smart. See, in fact, I have a, so what I mean is that if you don't write, it's writing that provides Newton. It's Newton, as in Maxwell built on Newton's work, but it was because he had the ability to read Newton's work and say, okay, if Newton said this and this and this, I can go a bit further to do this. If the writing is not there, it doesn't build on these things. Don't happen. Earlier was talking about perfect numbers in 300 BC. That is, and we are now using his theory on perfect numbers to do cryptography and Bitcoin in 2022. It's a 2,000 year build up of writing, of thinking about the issues and trying to solve even things that are totally abstract. And it's not, maybe it's inside our culture, maybe it's inside our Ifa oracles and in our Amadia, and maybe it's written inside those things that we've lost. But in what we are working with, in fact, it's part of why I think, as I said, it's how we got here. It's why I think we're behind. It's we don't have those things that we think. And it's not even because now I'm of the opinion that it might actually have been the smart thing to do. That not writing allows you to forget, and forgetting is very crucial to keep us away from self-destruction. And that now that we are close to the AI end and the nuclear energy end and we see the ends of technology, we can see how anti-human it can be towards the end. Maybe it was not even smart to write in the first place. That might even be an argument that we might have understood long time ago, and not we didn't write not because we couldn't, but just because we knew what the end was going to be. And it's like, ah, it's not worth it. So, yeah, you have all the memory, you have all the technology, but what does it profit you if you're ending up going to go end up in a lab and create a virus that destroys the entire world? So yeah.
okay. Um, I guess that's an interesting way to look at things. Um, One question I wanted to ask you, because it's something you mentioned about the, well, basically why we're behind. So, in summary, what do you believe is the reason Nigeria is behind? Apart from what you just said about not having any Isaac Newton, not doing any writing, and all of that.
Well, we've we've struggled with we have that, but then it's one of the things why I think I want to, I'm studying politics by getting myself involved in it. It's, I think we have not always been fortunate that we are not self-determining as we, as your two guests have kind of, as we're trying to allude to, and it's not, as Shola said, it's not even only us. It's like Epstein is a topic for a reason. It's that it might not be that we are the only ones not self-determining. It might be a whole, this might be a whole charade of not being self-determining, because the founder of PRP is a guy called Aminu Kano. And I bring him up because he was there at the beginning. He became a parliament representative because at the time we were doing the parliamentary system of government in 1959. And so he sat over our first constitution, like the 60 constitution and the 63 constitution. He was in the same party as Tafa Baliwa and Saldana Ahmadu Bello. And he broke out of that party from not PRP of today, but the party called NEPO. I say this because the main reason why he broke out was he attended meetings with them and believed that the combination of Tafa Balewa, Saldana, and the British didn't make us free. That this was just a charade of events that wasn't really making us free in the first place. And even in all the constitutions, like in the 60 constitutions, we still had parliamentarians that were appointed by the Queen. We removed that in the 63 constitution, but even then, there was a sense between Balewa and Sardauna that they were not there to remove the British, they were there to just manage the interest. And it appears that that has been our story since 1960, that it doesn't matter who comes in or who goes out. If you are, if you do more than yourself, they will kill you. It's like there's no real, all the leaders we've had before are just puppets and acting out the script to stay alive. And I don't know how many, we can count like how many Nigerian leaders have died in power. And some of it we think it's just local politics. But now with the Epsteins, with WikiLeaks, with all the with the internet, which is why I think we may be in for a liberation now post-internet, because the internet is teaching us a lot of things. But with the internet now, you're trying to think back at this thing, well, really, when Muritala was killed, was it really like, did Dimka just do it on his own, or did the CIA help? Or when Abiola just had a meeting with Susan Rice and died, was that just coincidence, or are they bigger players at work that we are not just recognizing?
You mentioned that you're going into politics due to curiosity.
One of many reasons, but yes, curiosity is one of the reasons. I want to know because I think to solve some of the problems we have, it's kind of easy. Like to clean the dirt of your streets, should it be really that difficult to do? Like it's like we clean the dirt in our homes. Like we clean it now. We figure out the way how to do that. Is that so? Is it so difficult to clean dirt off the street, or some of the problems that belie us? Like, is it really? Should it really take us 60 years to get constant electricity, even if we have to buy it? Or is it that these people are not selling it to us? They are just frustrating our attempts. There are some things that, because I think some of the problems that belie us are easy to solve, like in, at least if you give a reasonable some person the facts and said, okay, there's death on Alimosho streets on every 100 meters. How do you get it done? I think like we don't need like the smartest people in the room to come up with ideas that kind of gets it done permanently. So if it's not getting done, shouldn't we be asking some questions like why exactly isn't this getting done? I don't want to The reason I say curiosity is I don't want to be presumptuous. I know I'm presuming that it might be easy to solve, but maybe there are factors that are there that I can't just see because of my naivety to politics. But I want to try and say, okay, let me see whether I can really just get trucks and clean the dirt of Alimosho Street. Maybe as in let's see whether that is like really achievable. Before we even move to like the hard problems, let's see whether we can do the easy ones. The ones that we presume are easy because I say it's exactly why I say curiosity is because I think it's easy. I'm approaching it with let me learn, let me see what are the things that um, reps or politicians before me have been doing that makes it so impossible to do these things that we think is so basic to the average person.
Okay. So the reason I asked that question is because I don't think politics is something people just get into because of curiosity. It's something that takes years of planning, years of having a vision, of what you want to do and all of that. So one might assume, what if, you know, one could think that for you to just get into politics because of curiosity, is this something you might have gotten easily because maybe you're from a well-off background and you're able to just get into politics like that?
Well, I don't think. Well, I I don't know what is easy. It was one of the reasons why I chose PRP was the cost to get the form was 700,000 naira. Well, that's a lot of money, but compared to all the other parties that were charging 10 million, 5 million, 6 million, that was like, yeah. So if you, in NDC, if you want to be a House of Representative member in APC, the cost of the declaration of interest, there are two forms you need to get. Every party requires two forms.
Okay.
The first form you need to get is an expression of interest form and then a nomination form. And so for PRP, for instance, they they come from the culture of like they are trying to represent the poor, so they try to make it as cheap as possible in their to their credit, to our credit. I shouldn't say their credit, but to our credit. And so the expression of interest form for a House of Rep member is 200,000, and the nomination form is 500,000. So the total you need to pay on the form is 700,000.
Okay.
However, if you wanted to run for the same position in APC, the expression of interest fund is 3 million naira, and then the nomination form is 7 million naira. So you're going to pay 10 million. If
Wow.
you are going to do the same thing in NDC for the same position, the expression of interest form is 1 million naira, and then the nomination form is 4 million naira. So that's 5 million naira.
Wow.
If you are going to do it in ADC, I think it was 2 million. I know APC is the most expensive. ADC was the second most expensive. ADC, PDP, even APM were all about the same price. Then NDC was just a tad lower than the price of the ADC form. And then, of course, it's almost like you are stealing a ticket if you are paying 700,000 naira for it, because it's like it's like compared to what you could have been doing. So
Yeah.
yes, I think that politics is should be like religion. And I know it might be blasphemy to hear for religious people, but what I mean by that, I don't mean to blaspheme. But what I mean by that is that every citizen should have a party card, because even if you're not planning to run for office, you your your presence in meetings, in deliberation changes the trajectory of what happens inside the party because of your presence. And if we treat politics as for the politicians, for the thieves, then how do we get surprised that thieves are our leaders? And so as soon as you like do like your confirmation or your baptism, you should like, or whatever the Muslim equivalent of that is, you should you should like get a party card. It doesn't matter. You will never agree with your party on everything. Sometimes it's the service that counts. It's like the way you don't agree with your church on everything, but you go in there because it's important. It's the politics is not really about power. It's about how we organize a society. Is how do we agree on like how much. So there was a landmark ruling recently about drones, and the real argument was how much of when you own a property, how much of the property in the skies do you own? Like how many feet high do you own? And we had to go to court to like it's because of drones. Like I don't want your drone passing over my house, and then it's like okay, but it's this high. So how high up do you need? And those arguments are going to exist as long as we live as a group. Like as soon as we start grouping up, we start having cities of 10 people or 20 people or 100 people, there's always going to need for arbitration. There's always going to need for, okay, how do we organize? What do we want? Do we want to put roads over schools, or do we want schools over hygiene? What exactly has the budget going to be delayed up? And if we have to be participatory in that. If we leave it to some group of people who keep investing in it, then we lose out because only their interests that are going to be represented.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you participate in it because it's almost obligatory beyond the point. Like you have to, you might not run for office, but as I've said, they have their meetings, they have their primaries, and if you build yourself up like the way you do for your church, you contribute when you can. When they have rallies, okay, we need this money to do this, okay, take this 5K, take this 10K. And it's not because it's easy or because it's nice, but because you realize that it's part of life. It's one of the most important. You start first with yourself. You do yourself to be as good as you can be. Then if you're lucky enough, unfortunate enough, you have like a family, and then you try to do that. But then as soon as you extend out of that to your extended family, you're already in the realm of politics, and that's how it appears to go.
From what you said with the prices of the forms, do you think politics in Nigeria is a rich man's game?
Oh, it's really sad. It's like it's one of those things that I I said, thank you for asking these questions. Like, you're going to help me get something off my chest. We've been fighting Boko Haram now for 20 years, if not even more. Maybe, maybe a bit less. We have veterans of that war who are like staff sergeants, warrant officers, people who committed all their lives to serving this country, some even took bullets for the country, served all parts of the country, from all the way from Borno down to Lagos, Rivers, Calabar, everywhere. They've scoured the country. Is not supposed to be like a good kind of person to be in a leadership position? Understand, not only that have they tried, they've put their lives out for the country, but they have a knowledge. Like there's nobody that has like knowledge like a Barack man that you can speak outside, can speak Europe because they've posted him everywhere.
Yeah.
But where does APC expect him, the warrant officer that gets paid, and his best day, his final year out of the service, his pension, his gratuity after he comes out of the service is not even up to 10 million naira. He doesn't even get 5 million naira as his gratuity. And the highest he ever got paid maybe was 400K in his last year on his way out. Like, or a teacher, like, or let's take like a principal that somebody that is retiring as a principal who taught in one school like for like 20 years. He taught father and then son. And is that not supposed to be like a good representation or representative for that community, knowing like virtually every
Yes.
child in Africa has passed through his or her hands? Where is a teacher supposed to see 10 million naira to pay for form to be a House of Rep member? It's like that it's and not to like not to it's one of the reasons why like I felt I didn't want NDC. Sorry that I'm mentioning parties. I said I was not going to do that, but it was there's some like real problems that we face that is so you know that the game is already skewed. As I said, I'm learning by participating because when you see these things, you are just like this game is like it's screwed from day one. They've set it out to be that. So now, if you are that teacher that thinks like you have something that you want to give, you then have to go and meet a godfather who is going to call you to a meeting and say, you know what, this is what's going to happen. You will, I'll support you. I can support you. But what's going to happen is 60% of everything that comes to that office comes to me first. And then you and the people you want to represent get the remaining 40. And then, of course, if you have any dignity when you get to that point, you feel like, oh well, this politics is not for me. Let me go and find a farm somewhere, spend my retirement days in peace. And then if you think you're smart, you'll be like, don't worry. When I get into the office, I'm going to show them. Then you realize that that these guys have been here like long before you, as in they know things, they know they hear things, that money that you think is coming to the office, they are the ones that are releasing it, as in they are the ones they will tell you when it's going to come. So
Have you
it seems
experienced
like
any?
that.
Sorry.
No, I haven't. As in the only experience I've had is an experience of being I haven't been a politician for a long time. PRP is my first political party and I joined last year. And it was just because I felt I had come back from I had finished I studied in Turkey. I did my PhD. And by the time I had a choice to not come back, but I didn't. My dad was ill and I was like, no, I wasn't going to stay. And I didn't he had cancer, so I was like, no, I needed to come and be with him. And then I ended up staying. And then after he passed, I had a decision to make whether to go or to stay. But then living abroad also exposes you to all the flaws within that system as well. It's not like it's a perfect life. It's just trading some problems for another new set of problems that are equally as bad in some cases. But so you're just like, okay, your family's here, as in you're born here for a reason. You you're going to meet problems everywhere you go, anywhere. The entire point of the human life is probably to figure out a problem that you want to solve. So stay and see what you can do. And it's a journey, like as I've said, some of our communal problems seems easy to fix. You do your best to contribute whatever service you can. If it becomes if you figure out, because I haven't, as I've said, I haven't had any experience like that. I've been very fortunate with PRP. Maybe because they are also like in they are maybe it's the culture that was in them from the beginning, or maybe it's because they don't have any real office. They are not big players, so the entire party is just like one big family. Everybody seems to support each other, and in fact, most of our primaries were almost by consensus because it was like, okay, I think you can do a better job. I think you should take it. And maybe you can do a better job. I think you should take it. Maybe it's because we've not smelt the money, we've not seen the power and the spirit that like overtakes people has not we'll see. But it's not but I want to see what it's like to participate because it's not I think you lose the right to complain about your country after you turn 21, and you only gain back that right after 65. Like, there's whatever problems existed before you turn 21, there's not much you could do about it. But as soon as you're 21, then becomes your job to solve the problem because nobody's coming to solve. Like the other day, I was hearing like one of these ABC people calling IMF numbers. And I'm like, these people still in this world, don't they still get what's happening here? Do they really think that IMF cares about the Nigerian like masses? Like when they go to bed at night, they just think of God, how can the Nigerian masses be better? It's like serious, let's get real here. Like, nobody's coming to save us. It's it is hence you once you turn 21, you do whatever you can, don't complain. If anybody's complaining about Nigeria, they're complaining about you. It's you. As in, if anybody's complaining about Nigeria, it's me. As in, they're not complaining about everybody, it's me that they're complaining about. I'm the person. It's like what's the quintessential Nigerian if it's not me? It's like, so if they are complaining about you are complaining about yourself, just get to work. And then, of course, if you've done the best you can, and then you're 65, and you know you put your best in, and it didn't happen or it happened, then you can come back to start complaining. Like at least when I was bright, when I was sharp, when I was active, I did the best I can, and you can now point to all the things that frustrated you, and you resume back complaining. But but complaining at 30, at 40 is like I don't know. Maybe I just see things differently.
Wow. To hear that you had the opportunity to run away from Nigeria, but then you chose to come back and try and make things better. It's very moving. I'd like to apologize because I think first thing I assumed was that you were somebody who had a lot of money and so just wanted to play the game of politics for the fun of it. I don't know why I assumed I assumed that. But I
It's I'm not even going to lie. Like you can't. I have been fortunate in my life, and I'm not saying like I don't get me wrong. I'm not a billionaire. My parents are not like billionaires. I'm not even sure like they can say they have 100 million. But it's like you have to understand in a place like Nigeria where only 19% of the population would achieve like a BSc degree. Like anybody that was able to do that is already like super fortunate because like yeah, Nigeria is a country where we have like right now children in the bush for like every there's almost a children in every bush. And to say children in the bush is like maybe we'll be singling out one, but there's children in the bush in Borno, there's children in the bush in Oyo, there's children in every bush. So if you if you made it to my age and you didn't spend time in the bush, you should consider yourself like super fortunate because there are people who didn't like. Sometimes I say the, chil- the people who are even putting these children in the bush seem like children themselves. And God knows the kind of experience that they had in this same Nigeria that caused them to be these people who are. It's so if you are fortunate enough, like I said, to even have two parents that loved you, like, and then you are now super fortunate enough to have like grandparents that you knew. I mean, in my mind, you should just be going to church every day and just be like, oh my God, as in, you've been so good. As in, you've been so good to me. Because you, Nigeria it's a very interesting place.
I'd like to. I know I've focused a lot on politics, which wasn't what I was supposed to be focusing on. So I want to speak to you about the economic systems and how they shape and control opportunities in Nigeria.
Well, no, like economic systems shape and control in every country. It's not just Nigeria. Um, the thing about us is it's not we lack homegrown things, especially in terms of like literature and culture. And so when we see economic system, is is that germane to us? Like, did we like where who is were we thinking like Adam Smith? Were we thinking in terms of like scarcity? Or were we thinking like Thomas Hobbes? Like you could, if I'm looking at Hobbian economics and I'm trying to, it's based on some certain principles that may not even apply. We Colonization was really bad for us. It was really bad and really good. The really bad part is that we lost all our culture, our bidding culture. Like it's not like it's not like we didn't have money. We didn't use gold as money, but we had cowries, and maybe using the cowrie system of money and evolving it into modern economics would be completely different from if we were using gold and the gold standard of money and then a cowrie, because the level of scarcity even of gold against the level of scarcity of cowrie was much less. So in inculcating that into our own systems might have been a completely different thing. But because we were colonized and our educational system was completely replaced, we now we are now kind of lost. And it's easier for us to like embrace purely scientific systems like that because they're universal. But social sciences are not universal. The culture and culture plays like serious roles in the social sciences in the way like it doesn't play in the conventional sciences. And so some of our problems emanate even from that because we are trapped in their game. Like, how do you get your currency to be better than the dollar without playing their game? It's why Tinubu is playing the IMF game or playing because it's not a game that you built, and because you didn't build it, it's it's seldom really going to work for you. It- So if you should ask me, like, how do we the real where we need to go is to start really thinking about who are we, what are our values, and then how do we, based on who we are, reach those goals. And it's a conversation that we've never really had. Like we've had opportunities. We've been having. I can't say we've never really had. We've not had it to a deep enough level. The As I've said, the pre-independence group wasn't really about that. Like yes, maybe Awolowo was about that. Aminu Kano maybe was about that. Maybe there were a few people about that, but whoever the people who won the day eventually were not about. They were not about that. It is because they were not about that that led us to the war. Because there's a must read. It's called Why We Struck by Wale Ademolekun. He was one of the um majors. I think he was a captain at the time, but they say it's five majors. Maybe it was a major at the time that planned the coup. And in that book, Why We Struck, he kind of really outlines why the name of the book is Why We Struck. So he really outlines like why, what is it? And it was mainly because of all the failures of the First Republic, because they were not about Nigeria. They were still about the empire. They were still about imperialism. We lost we basically lost that opportunity. And maybe if we had allowed democracy to play out and they didn't interfere, maybe democracy was slow because they were young men. I get it, as in maybe I'm being as naive as they were being at the time, thinking like we're just going to put like a jack to the system and we are going to like make everything like. And maybe if they had allowed it play out slowly and painfully, we would maybe be in a better place now. But that's not our history. So we lost the opportunity to have. We didn't have the opportunity at the beginning, and by time Obasanjo, rather than like he was the one who had the opportunity twice. I can't say he had it the second time, but the first time he maybe had the opportunity to say, okay, before we head into this democracy, let's have this conversation on what exactly are we doing here. I don't really think we had the conversation because the nature of our constitution was so opaque. Because the conversation often starts and ends in the team that creates the constitution. It's like, how were you founded? As in the American founding is so interesting because the team was there, everybody, the arguments, all the debates that happened was, it's obvious, we can all read it. Nobody can read the debates that Nigerian politicians were having before we founded, before this country. Like, it's opaque. And then
Wow.
finally we had the most recent opportunity in the pre-19 Republic era. I don't even know why I call it Fourth Republic. I always, because Third Republic in my mind never really existed, but that's a different argument for another day. But the Fourth Republic era is where you come in, we come in, we are trying to hand over to civilians, and we basically come up with a constitution in 60 days without like with a team of maybe like 12. Like who does that in a country of like, and we didn't even see the constitution until the eve of the election. Even some people even argue that we didn't see the constitution until after the president
Wow.
was sworn in. And so we've
You,
never like we've never as a people like had the conversation as to the President Goodluck Jonathan tried it with the national confab. He tried to have the conversation, and for whatever reason, I always think that that was his undoing. That conversation was the time they decided, like, hey, guy, you're not coming back here. You're trying to spoil this thing that you're going to do because it's you can't even have that conversation in one conversation. It's a series of conversations that sometimes even over centuries. But you want the first one to like have kicked off so that everybody can build on like a somewhat balanced foundation. Because on this one that we have, it's nothing like you can't build anything on it because it's quicksand. It's not built for structure. But
see, Mr.
we'll see.
You're a smart man. You have a PhD. You started a commerce business. You are into AI. How do you honestly feel when you watch videos seeing of your president speaking? How does it make you feel?
I don't I don't feel anyway. I feel he's a Nigerian and he's still your president is we should accept who we are. Like we have like a large gap. Not I find it I find it strong hard to so if I go for a campaign event in some of the places in my constituency, I can't even really speak English if I really want to talk to them. It's not if I want to have that conversation with them, this English I'm speaking here is not going to do anything for me. So that the way your president speaks is not even I don't really the president is not going to have everything. No human being is perfect. If you even if you are a retard, even if you're not a retard, even if you are dumb, but you have good ideas and you can make people work. It's the way you speak isn't doesn't do so much for me. The the problem I have with our politicians is not how they say it, it's what they say. It's their inability to say the truth. Like the if you ask me like what do I think I can do differently, I don't know whether I can like build the roads because I don't know whether there's a demon that is against Nigerians roads being built and it has consumed the same reason why it has consumed all the politicians before me to consume me. I don't know. But at least the thing I think I can control is like I can tell the truth.
It
Sorry.
seems NEPA has gone where you are.
Not NEPA, it's my lighting. Just wait, the light went out. Oh, yeah, so they say it's NEPA.
That's okay.
Oh my
Well,
God.
you can't control NEPA. So
That's the same thing. That's the same thing about being in Nigeria. That's what we are talking about to me in Nigeria.
Sorry.
Oh my god. My god.
Sorry.
Let,
So please
let
continue.
me see.
That's okay. So you don't. I guess this
How are
one's
we
not
now
as
going to
important as the other
record
one
this?
anyway. So
How
don't
are we
worry.
going to record this?
Okay.
So,
So back to what you were saying before NEPA took light. You were talking. You were saying that it's not about how they speak. It's about what they say. Can you give me an example of that?
I mean, they don't tell the truth. They, so say for instance, like in in 2015, when Buhari was running to be president, one of his campaign promises was he was going to make like the naira equivalent to the dollar. Like, if there's no economist you can tell that's going to tell you how that was possible in 4 years or in 8 years. Like, it was not economically possible. It's like the same thing that Tinubu did with like this electricity when he said that if I don't give you constant power in 4 years, what's my the office? Like, there's no, like, maybe because I studied energy systems engineering, I know that there's no possible way. If Nigeria wants to do electricity right, it'll take us about 20 years.
20 years.
Yes, because the right way to go about it is not to import the technology, is to home build it, is to sponsor like researchers, university undergraduates, like people that are working on it, and then try and get it local so that everything is local, the technology is local, the science is local, it's repeatable locally. That's the best way to go about it, which makes you non-dependent on the foreign market. And if you are going to be dependent on the foreign market for anything, it's going to be specific. You're going to know exactly what you want. You know exactly what you want, how much you're going to use it for, how long it's going to go for. But even if you are not going to do it right, even if you are just going to do it the way we are doing it now, that we're just going to buy it, the major, there are not plenty generator manufacturers in the world. Maybe they are about top of them about five. And even for the least producing generator manufacturer, he's backed up almost 4 years or 5 years of orders, which means that even if you had all the money in the world and you wanted to just purchase a generator, you needed to wait like 4 years before it gets to you, much less like installing it and then making it work. And the for generating electricity in Nigeria is three ways. You generate it, you transmit it, and you distribute it. The reason is like you generate it at a certain voltage and current, but you can't really transmit it at that voltage and current because at low at low current levels, electricity is lost when it's going through the wires. That's what makes the wires heat up. It's the loss of electricity. So to reduce that loss, you need to bump it up. That's why you have transformers for that are now taking it to higher voltages. And you have to have, so in the current Nigerian grid system, our installed capacity is about 13 gigawatts, right? And installed capacity isn't the same as generating capacity. So you have to maybe deduct like 40% of that and say the amount that we can actually push for people to use is maybe out of the 13% installed, maybe we can push out 7 or 8 gigawatts. But even if we can push out 8 gigawatts, our transmitting capacity is only about 4 gigawatts of energy. So we can't even push, which is why our grids are always failing. Because if the generation companies push a lot any more than what it can take, it collapses the entire grid. And yet we are generating a lot more, but we are not transmitting enough. We need to expand our consumption side. And ideally, we shouldn't be, as a country of our size, we should be not doing it with 10. We shouldn't, our gigawatt capacity shouldn't be in its tens. It should be in its hundreds. If you really, in the modern world, in the data center world, it should be in its thousands. We should not be even talking about gigawatts. We should be talking about terawatts at this point. If we really want to like compete with the but let's forget about competing. We're not competing in like 100 years. But which is that's the thing about the truth. It's like this is the truth that we should say. So people can like understand lying about like things that you know, because if you put any research on, if you put anybody who knows anything about energy, if you put a policy person, he will tell you. I think you could employ me as your policy person. I will tell you. I can give you everything what it will take. So it's not like I don't think politicians don't know this information. It's like they want to win elections, and the other guy is going to say he will do it in 2 years. So I'll say I'll do it in 1 year. When we enter the power, we know we're not doing anything. It's like it's all games. It's not. It's so, which is what I think is like most important now. We need people who will just like see the truth, who don't care like particularly about winning elections, but just telling people like this is what the truth is. And the good thing about the truth is that it lasts. So yeah, somebody can tell you like I would give you power in 4 years. Another person will tell you it take 20 years. But after 4 years, you go see, it's like your mechanic that is giving you lumber. As in, you go when if the correct guy has told you this is what the problem is, and one other person is telling you that no, the point if you just do it like this, it will work. And you say, oh, it's because it's cheaper. Let's go and do it. You will be back in 2 weeks' time. You'll be back on the same problem. You'll be back. And that's really what's happening to us. Is that maybe it's the reason why we are not doing the best we can. Like I like roads, like I like good roads, but Nigeria's problem is not roads. We really need to like radically educate our population. And when I say educate, I don't mean like get a PhD or even get a BSc degree. All those things are useless. You True education is giving people the ability to read and write. I often tell somebody that the most literate person is the person who has read the most number of books plus written the most number of books in the most number of languages. And that you don't need like a PhD to do any of that. But if you can write like 100 books and read 10,000 books and write in 4 languages, bro, I'm 100% sure you're more literate than most professors that I have ever known. It's like I'm certain of that. And we should have a target that everybody that's coming out of primary school must have read this number of books. Everybody that's coming out of secondary school must have read this number of books. The books should be diverse, that it covers our history, other people's history, it covers sciences, it covers, and when we say books, it's all kinds of books, textbooks, but you know where everybody's come. But, but then we seem to be like, rather than focusing on that, having the youngest like population in the nearly the youngest population in the world and the most diverse, we are building like roads. Like roads you can build if you have the right population. You can build a road in the twinkle of an eye. Just ask China.
Yeah.
Like as in if you focus but because it's the short-sightedness of the politics that we praise. The same reason why they lie. It's like I can show off a road in 4 years. The child I educate is not going to be useful until like 20, 30 years from now. Nobody's even going to know that I educated a child. But at least everybody can know I can put my name Bola Tinubu, Postal Road, wonderful. Oh my God, what a beauty. And then but it's like it's really is that our problem. Like we have 19-year-olds becoming bandits, kidnapping 13-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and you think it's roots that help that. I don't know. Well, we'll see.
Do you think that there are any politicians right now in Nigeria who actually tell the truth?
Um, so most of we have guys who don't lie, and like there's a difference. Like they won't lie. They won't tell. They are not telling the truth, but they will not lie. So they exist in the realm of plausible deniability. Like I'm not going to say it exactly as it is, but I'm just not going to. If you ask me the direct question, I'm going to find a way to like skim. You know the political answer now.
Yes, yes.
And then I'll skim away from it. But yeah, I don't see. I think if you played in Nigerian politics for any period of time, you kind of fall into the same tricks because it's not built, as I've said, it's quicksand. It's not really built for stability. It's why I say it's a badge of honor that PRP hasn't been winning elections, because kind of elections we practice, if you're really going to be honorable, it will be difficult for you to win them. And I'm only like in it now because I think that the internet gives us an opportunity. It closed a small window to make some radical changes. It will shut down very soon. Like the free internet isn't going to be like a thing for like you having your freedom to like interview me and interview anybody you want, and like your program, not trying to be, but like the amount of conspiracy theorists on your program, like, oh, this is just like a conspiracy show. But but your abilities like to even interview like these people, like Dr. Stella, for instance, is like it won't it wouldn't like exist forever. It's going to be a short window that I don't even think exists like 20 years from now.
Why do you say
And
that?
because of artificial intelligence, and there's been a consistent effort even from the beginning of the internet to make it, it's the entire thing between the Snowden scandals, like to make it less free. Because the reason why, see for instance, like where we are now, say this 2027 election was happening in 1994. In 1994, if I wanted to get my message out there, there's no Ugonat talk, so there's no 91 production. I had like a finite number of television channels that I could go to, and a finite number of radio channels that I could go to. And all those television and radio stations are owned by the same set of people. So you don't even you don't even you don't you don't get into the door unless you play by their rules. It's not fair. It wasn't like that. You think like NTA2 or even Channel C or even Arise TV is like sleeping there thinking about the plight of Nigerians. It's a small club and most of us are not in it. And so, but now, and so that power that has been almost had for for decades, and for in some countries like centuries, the idea that you want to liberate it from people that have control over it and they're not going to fight back to get control is not like realistic. And the only reason they've not won yet is because it's new. As in, once everybody gets a hang of it now, it's going to be much more easier to control. And now with artificial intelligence, and it's only a matter of time. They already can. It's the lulling into the sleep that is left. They can already shut it down if they want to, but not enough people, because the internet is so new that those are people who bet it are still alive to like say no, this is not the point. But eh, very soon that generation is going to be like done. Like it's just my parents' generation for some of them, and the mainly like the millennial generations were the real guys who like bet the internet, the modern internet. But in 40 years, they are all like the people that are silenced, people that are gone, and then it's completely different. Like people don't current users don't even know what how it started, what it is. Like they don't know what, so it's going to just be a slow boil until the freedom on the internet is completely like gone. Like even the Bible says it. It's like it's not the whole point of the end times. There's going to be like full control over the world. So it's not like it's not some. I'm not pushing some wisdom. It's so old that the Bible has mentioned it. It's not. It's going to happen.
Oh, wow. I've been wasting my time talking about politics with you, but this is what I want to hear. Can you tell me some more, please?
So okay, it's I don't know what part exactly, whether it's the Bible part or the technology part, but they kind of merge in that. There's there's an overarching story across multiple religions as to, because what is religion exactly? In my teens, I was an atheist because my father was a pastor, and all I knew from like in my father's Bible, His one of his oldest Bibles, he says, "I gave my life to Christ at 3 years old."
Wow.
And then he writes the date, right? But then, I didn't. By the time I was a teenager, I was like disillusioned with the whole idea of this not being like nothing bigger than like a scam, like a power, like all these pastors just saying, "Today you will receive your healing."
Amen.
and and so I and so I left the church kind of. I was still attending, but not really like. But a few things like brought me to the realization that first there's the question of like God, and it's the first divider of people. Like, is there God against is there? Does God not exist? Let's not even focus about religion. Let's even focus about the first thing that it has to do is like, does God exist? Like, there's a philosophical existence. There's a philosophical argument that just the mention of you asking about God means that it exists, because if it doesn't exist, there'll be no name for it, because nobody names nothing. So there's a philosophical argument of that. But even if you put that aside, its existence across all tongues is something that cannot be trifled with scientifically. Like, there's a reason why Yorubas call it Oluwa, Igbos call it Chineke, Greeks call it the church call it Yahweh, and every iteration of people across the entire planet all have a name for this, and not just for God, but even for angels. Like, how is it that all these many tongues across, sometimes that never even met each other, across different like time, spaces in time, all refer to this thing? How many of those kind of things do we have? One, there's like, for there are words that don't only exist in one language and don't exist in the next, because it's only unanimous to this language. In fact, there's a way to there's a someone who said that the way to tell how sophisticated a culture is to just list the total number of words in its language, and you can tell like how sophisticated it is. And you and so you have a word like God, and it's present in like all languages, and there's some words that are present in some and not present in others, and there are words that are just unique to one language and the only them have it. But the presence of God across multiple languages is another level of proof. But when you now even go down to the like stories in the different like religion, the different sects that, so among the people who believe in God now, we now have like multiple different sects of Christian, Muslim, and Buddhist, Confucianist, or whatever, all the other religions, as in Jew, whatever religion it is. The Abrahamic religions have like a consistent, in fact, those ones are very consistent. They believe in a monotheistic God, then it's in form of like a trinity, and ultimately a monotheistic God is a monotheistic faith is a faith that believes like in one true like God.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't use the monistic faith. We used to have like a multiple. We believed in Ogun, Shango, Yamada. We had like multiple gods, and many faiths are like that. They are like the Greeks too are like that. The Zeus, the Romans. Many people had the. It's one of the thing about the Abrahamic religion is they are believing in a monotheistic faith. And their stories are very similar. God created the world, we sinned, we fell. When we fell, God was looking for our redemption, and then we finally got the redemption. But there's going to be a final fight with the accuser or the devil at the end. And once after the final fight, those who are redeemed, those who are damned are damned. And but there is also like prophecy of all the things that are going to happen prior to all of these things happening. And many, if you really just if you take away like religious biases and you just look, many of those prophecies are the same. And even not just the prophecies, but even the rituals are the same. Like, they all believe in some sort of sacrifice. They all like they all like pray in a certain way. There's a need for singing, there's a need for worship. All these things are like, there's a pattern in which if there's a pattern in which you used to seem to worship God that seems to like note across like even all the religions. If you are just looking about, if you are not looking at it specifically and you're just taking a broad view as to say, okay, how do you pray to God? And you see the same few people chant, the Catholics have their beads, the Muslims have their beads, there's a certain chant that needs to go across, and then there's a way you have to commune, there are postures you need to take. It's very similar. If you look at it like broadly, it's similar. And it seems to track the same way for the devil though.
How?
Like, so if you watch our like Nigerian movies, you'll you'll see that we we have a way like bring a virgin girl, and then you will need to kill and you need to do some blood rituals, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that brought me to faith too, or something like that, I always used to laugh like, why is it only Nigeria that used to do blood rituals and sacrifice children? Only white people have good rules and they don't sacrifice children. Until Epstein's files came through, and you're just like, so this is just like Kanayo, Kanayo. What's happening here? As in, it's like young girls are being sacrificed, as their blood is being exchanged. As in, this is just
The same
this
thing.
you can put this in. So it seems to track that there is a way, as there's a way to worship God. It seems to track like there's a similar way like to worship the
The
devil,
devil.
where there's the same sacrifices to get. And so based on those things, there's a way they say it's going to end. Um, we I have this like thesis about us being back to the Tower of Babel moment, and that and the Tower of Babel. I don't know what I'm doing. I see I'm talking to like a Christian audience, but the Tower of Babel is about a story in the Bible of human beings were all speaking the same word, and they were like they wanted to build a a temple or a place that they could so that they could build it so that they can reach heaven so that they can see God. And they all came together and started building the temple. And then um God decided to change their tongues, said their fools, and decided to change their tongues, and all the tongues. Everybody started speaking different tongues, and because they were not united again, God admitted that if they were united, we might be able to succeed in believing doing these tasks, but change their tongues and they lost unity, and hence they couldn't complete the task. But in 2026, now all of us are now back speaking the same language. Like once we reach what the tech overloads wants us to reach, where there's internet in every house, everybody's attached to their phones, then we all speak binary now. It doesn't matter what you're typing on your phone, it always goes down to binary, and binary is language for like all like communication. And once we've reached that point now, we are looking for like God. Like every time our new goals now are trying to be God. Like if you see what is the global goal of man now, is either getting to Mars, going to a different planet, or having like like I like this for what's their names? They have one very cool internet name.
Is this
It's not transhumanist. I like this new transhumanist. Transhumanists are they're people who are like they don't believe in dying. So like the work Elon is doing with Neuralink has like some transhumanist applications, because I don't know whether you know the work with Neuralink, but it's a it's neurons, artificial neural networks, like it's AI that you can attach to your brain. So
yeah.
assume that you can attach a device here, and then you can add artificial neurons to your neurons, because the artificial neural network technology is built like the human brain. So we also call like the decision makers within the system neurons. And the idea is that if perfected, you can back up neuron for neuron link. So every neuron in your brain can be backed up inside an artificial neuron, and then you may be able to transfer your consciousness into a machine. But we are not yet there yet. What we are still trying to do is like to grow limbs back and like make the deaf hear and make the blind see and those kind of cool things. But you can see, like, if you study enough of Revelations, like, it just becomes like, oh, oh, this is cool. We're in this part of this. We're in this part now. And then this is where we are now. And yeah, it's built. The world is about. I I believe that the world is about souls, and it's a and there are two influences trying to win over the human soul. There's the good guys, and then there are the bad guys, and each of them is in a dire contest for every soul. Like, there's going to be a soul counting competition at the end of this whole thing, and then I don't know whether who has the most souls wins. I don't know how the game. The Bible doesn't say that that's how the game is, but I guess that there is a game, but the real game is about the soul, and it doesn't matter who you are, wherever you are, like, born, whether you were rich, whether you were poor, whether you had a limb or you didn't. Like, there will be enough challenges in your way to help decide where your soul should reside. And that is really what it's about. Like, the rich man has his own issues, like living abroad and living in Nigeria. Like, yes, some things are better, but there are some things that are worse. The same thing about being rich and being poor. Like, yes, there are some things that are better, but there's some things that are worse. Like, you can't be. It's difficult for a poor man to be an adulterer, for instance, but it is like so easy for a rich man. It's like, and maybe that's your own temptation. So, yeah, you you kind of live with it, and you're just like, do the best you can, hope that your soul ends up in the right place, and that I think is the point.
You have some experience with AI, right?
Oh yes, I was fortunate. When I went to do my masters, one of the I went I when I did my masters in 2012, and I had a professor who was working on AI since. So a lot of people think AI is like a relatively new thing. Like, when people say AI, they're thinking like ChatGPT, but AI, the first paper on AI, on what we call AI, or the semblance of what we call AI, was published in the 50s, probably 52 or 53. In fact, there's an argument as to who published the first paper. A lot of people say is Newman. No, the most people, the consensus is that it's Alan Turing. um, Alan Turing was the first person that published on AI, and you live in England, so you probably know Turing. He's the guy who was the cryptographer of the British War. So he published an AI paper because it was about machines that can think like humans, and he called it artificial intelligence first. Newman published a paper similar to his paper maybe 2 years before him, but he didn't call it artificial intelligence. He called it, I think, artificial computers or something like that, which was a bit different. So the exact coining of the word artificial intelligence was given to Turing. But if you ask me, the person who like first pioneered the idea, but ideas are not really pioneered. Often when an idea's time comes to light, multiple people get it like a light bulb. So it's not usually like one person, but the first person who published it was, in my mind, was Newman. We've been working on it now since like the 50s, and it only became useful like in 2026. It's not like it only became useful in 2026. It has even been very useful. In fact, the point I was trying to make was that one of the best like financial investment firms in the US has been using AI since the 70s, and is the best financial investment firm. He built his own algorithm just for predicting time series data. So forecasting what like prices are going to be in the future. And he until very recently he was modeling the entire Wall Street. And so people have been using it. People who are more like mainly maths departments in like top 100 schools have been killing AI for decades now. But it's now, I worry that this is the like foretold Antichrist for two reasons. So we're trying to build a human being. They're trying to build a human that is not a human being. So already we've taught our machines to see. So we have five senses. We can see, and no human can see as well as a machine, because our machines don't only see like the wavelengths that we see, they see the wavelengths that we don't see, they see infrared, they see ultraviolet, they'll see more than we will ever see. But we've taught them to move. we we've taught them to move so much so that we're now trying to perfect human movement. Like we already, like our machines can already move faster than us. That's why we are using cars, and we are using planes, and we are using drones. We are already like we've taught them to see, we've taught them to move, we've taught them to walk, we've taught them to speak. So right from when we created the first speaker, as in they can now speak, they can speak in more ways than we can, right? Yeah, now talking to each other that we don't even understand. They're not even inventing their new languages. Um, we've we've not taught them to smell yet, but I know people who are working on teaching them to smell. Um, what's the other thing? What's the other sense that I'm missing? I know I'm missing an
To
important
feel.
sense. Feel, yes, we've taught them to feel, as in we have pressure sensors, we have temperature sensors, they can feel any pressure. Like your skin is just a pressure sensor, and we have pressure sensors now. They can feel like the highest temperatures to the lowest temperatures. They can feel like much more than we can ever feel. As in, if you put a human being inside the furnace, it burns up immediately, but you can put like a machine inside the furnace and it can tell you like it's 40 degrees centigrade, and you can put it inside deep ice. So we've been able to, we've taught them how to feel. There's still one more, I guess. Touch, smell, taste. So we've not taught them to taste. We've not taught them to taste, and we've not taught them to smell. Those are the two ones. And the whole idea behind AI is to finally give it a brain that it can put all these things together and be like, it will give it all of the senses, then the brain, and the AI, the neural networks is the machine's brain. That is also like we did with all the other inventions before us. We like simulate what the human brain does and try to like optimize for it. And so once we're done with all of that, we create something that is far more powerful than we can ever like imagine, because it sees more than we can see, it moves faster than we can move. It will be able to feel more than we can feel, taste more than we can taste, smell more than we can smell. So that is a problem in itself. So we face a problem from that end. We face, even if that doesn't come true, the second the second option that we are presenting is also, as the AI option, is also just as terrible. It's the Neuralink option. It's the human machine like symbiosis. And if we agree to that, I often worry like once you've put the AI inside your brain, how are you sure it doesn't take control over you? Like there'll be no way for you to really like cry out to say, I'm no longer in control of me, because the machine is in control of you. So it will just be like a spirit inside you, like trying to cry out and can't, because there's an overwhelming like force. I don't know. No one's really talking about that. Like the transhumanists don't believe in God, so it's easy for them to like skip all those things, because it's just like it's this religious idiots talking there like rubbish. And so yeah, we it the consolation for someone like me is that it's been prophesied. So it's not like it's something that you need to like worry about. It's not just that it's prophesied that it will happen. So you're like, oh well, okay. But because if the mark of the beast is what the mark of the beast is, it's something that once you take, you can't untake.
Yeah.
And there is the tendency that if you taking AI the way they want us to take it, there's a way that you can't untake it once you've taken it, and it might lead us to that path, and then you are now part of like a one, and if that one is not God's one, if it's the devil, then you're basically just so yeah. Which is why it goes back to our point. It's like it might not have been like what it might have been the wise thing. The African path might have been the wise path to go. It's like you don't get all this technology.
Yeah.
However, you don't like you live simpler lives. You as in you live better lives. Because like if you if you were to ask me like what is a good life? Like if you say okay, like you're a politician in Nigeria, like what do you think like a good life for a Nigerian would look like? It would be that s- we're we're so happy and confident in our lives that an 18-year-old having a wife is not strange. Like that if you live as long as 90, you are like fairly expected to see your great grandchildren because like everybody's like happy they're you're it's not like a good life for me isn't like you have like the latest iPhone or like you driving like a Bentley because I don't think that those things matter. But like you live in an environment that is clean.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like it can be a mud house, but it's tidy as in you can like live inside. You get the occasional light when it's time to sleep. You can sleep. You can like wake up at like 4 a.m. and like take a jog like in your neighborhood and like jog like 10 miles in one direction and then at random and jog 10 miles back and it doesn't even cross your mind like that you are not like safe. Like the only thing you're not safe of is like the dog that's going to be barking at you or maybe the random animal, but like a human like you're not thinking of getting kidnapped or like oh
Yeah.
my god like one Okada man will just come and slap me and take everything from what I have. Like you're not really like that is what I consider like a good life, and that isn't achieved with like I don't think you buy it with money. It's a value system that that values life, like where life is at the center of it, not like anything but like I want this person to be okay. Because why is our average age like 30, average age of marriage like 30, 32, 35 now? Because like people look at their lives in their 20s like how am I going to marry? Like I can't, it's not even something like it's I was watching a skit the other day and they're like, some people are telling you to marry and you want to marry. And let me tell you what the price of a hall is. The guy was now highlighting like all the
Expensive.
prices of the things. And it's like, and this is a budget wedding, not if you won't be known on your street that you did wedding.
I understand what you
And
mean. It's too expensive these days for people to even think of that.
yeah, exactly. And it shouldn't be. It should be like the minute you are like 18 and you're out of your house, you should be so confident that you're not even thinking that you're almost guaranteed that I'll have a house. You make those decisions like so casually, mainly because the society is built for you to be in that situation. But
Yes.
we are not there yet.
Hopefully,
Um,
by God's grace, we'll.
hopefully, by God's grace. Yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about Nigeria on many reasons. One of the reasons I'm optimistic is that we have a young population, and even though we've been corrupted, we haven't been as corrupted as the foreign countries, because the foreign countries have been well. The corruption is like well vast. Like when I mean corruption, it's not like we're not greedy and so, but our souls have not yet completely not completely lost. And even if even if like even if the Antichrist is to come, right? Nigeria has to have light for the Antichrist to come, because the Antichrist needs the internet to work, and if the Nigerian guy, so it's like for sure, and we will get some of these things just because it is prophesied. We have to get it just for it to happen. So we will likely like get many of these things. I don't even know whether getting those things are necessarily good things, but if that's what we want, like we'll have lights, we'll have roads, we'll have all these things. But yeah, it might come at the cost of our souls.
Hmm.
I don't know whether we are we are willing to have the conversation about that.
About that. Well, that's the first time I've heard anyone look at things from that point of view. And I must say, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I can see the many things you're doing, um, and I hope, I think, I think the last thing I will ask you, the last thing I will say to you is, do you feel that you may be wasting your youth, wasting your education, wasting your time by entering Nigerian politics? Are you afraid that you might be taking a big risk?
Yes. I so in my mind, it's like you. I'm not serving in the army or in the air force or anything. It's like you spend the resources, and most importantly, what you have mentioned is the time, like to do this thing, not because you couldn't be doing other things, but because like, okay, let me contribute wherever I can. Like I don't want to be the guy that's complaining and not even have tried to do anything. Like try as in have your failure stories, have your success stories, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And if you're successful, then I don't think you I don't believe in like wasting time. I think God wants me to do this now. I don't even know I'll be successful. The odds of me being successful is like if you like I don't think you've even heard of the party PRP before today. So
No, no.
use that as use that as the odds. Use that as the odds. And so it's not you do what you have to do. The campaign is like 6 months. Basically, maybe it starts now and doesn't end by January 16. Whatever results would have been announced. You will know whether you won or you lost. And then you move on. You would have it's 6 months of your life. Yes, it's an important 6 months of your life. You probably could have done a lot more something different with it. But
Yeah.
like this is also important. It's not important. It's you, you, the question is okay. So what else would you be using your education for? Like making money? Like really? There's no like what is if you say okay you and I don't even think like the education is like so much like something like anybody could. The education is not everybody. I think I don't even think I'm like the if we're talking about like literate Nigerians, I won't consider myself in the top like 10% to be honest. But like I know Nigerians like we have like that's not like any so but you do this now because when do you want to do it? Like in a few years I'll turn 40. Like I just had my first child. You will
Congratulations.
there's not going to be like an easier time. It's not going to get easier to like do it. You do what you can. If you're fortunate, you get into the office. I'm never one of those people who think like I can stay in the office for like 20 years. I don't even think that if I mistakenly win this election, I'm sure that by the next one they would have kicked me out. I'm almost like I'm almost like 90% sure. If I mistakenly like something happens because of the internet, like a miracle happens and you win. And the next one they're like, nah, this guy has said too much truth. It's time for him to get out.
Wow.
That's if they are lucky if they don't even kill you. But they're like if they are just like, you know what? Are you going to fight? Even myself at that point, I'm like, I'm not fighting. No, I've done my own part. Let somebody else come and try. I've done so I see it that way and we'll see. Like I don't think there's anything you have 24 hours in a day. I'll be lucky to be alive tomorrow. It's like and if I'm alive till that time comes, and then there's you as long as you are you think you're walking in God's path, then there's no
Yes.
wasted time.
Wow. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. And I wish you the best of luck
Thank you.
with. And honestly, this has been a very interesting conversation. And I think I've learned a lot to look at things differently in different ways. So thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
your time. And
It was
God
nice.
bless.
I like, as I said earlier, I watched the program. I can't say I watched all the episodes, but you have a very interesting guest. Like, I was a big fan of Dr. Stella even before you interviewed her, and I like the perspective. I like your interview style. I know you know a lot more than you let on, and then you just like let it flow, and which is like fantastic. It's like talk 1,000 words sometimes. It's like, yes. So I love the program. I'm really honored to be on the show. I didn't even think I was going to get on, but I just took the opportunity and sent the email and saw what was going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And God bless you.